Q, the show where we pick the brains of everyone and anyone involved in clinical research. I'm your host, Shauna Cusack, Global Sales Manager with Atlantia. And today I'm joined by the wonderful Emily Goodbody, who is our Senior Clinical Operations Manager and I believe the longest employee in Atlantia.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us today, Emily. We are delighted to have you. And with that, we'll jump into the first question. So could you give us some background on yourself and maybe specifically how you got into clinical research or maybe what led you down that career path?
Yeah, so I suppose I've always been interested in kind of health and nutrition. So after I finished school, I went on to do my undergraduate in nutrition. And I suppose when I finished my undergraduate, I wasn't really sure exactly where I wanted to go. So I then went on to do a master's in clinical nutrition.
Okay.
And I suppose during that time, I did a kind of research study during my master's where I was collecting data. I had to kind of complete a protocol and do the stats on it. So that kind of got me into
kind of taster.
Exactly, yeah. So then after I finished my master's, I kind of knew that was kind of the way I wanted to go. So I did an internship actually in South America.
Oh, wow.
Which was super interesting.
Yeah.
It was in Peru.
Oh, wow.
So it was very, very interesting. And basically the whole internship was kind of helping them to complete their research study that they were doing.
Okay. With a CRO there?
It was actually with an NGO.
Okay.
So it was looking at, it was kind of a community study that they were doing. And it was looking at mothers and children and kind of collecting health data from them. So I was kind of going to, it was very interesting. So I was kind of going to different communities and collecting kind of anthropometric data from the mums and babies, and also kind of dietary and kind of socioeconomic information from them. And I suppose that kind of consolidated that was kind of the route I wanted to go down.
Okay.
So when I returned to Cork, I applied for the position of clinical trials assistant in Atlantia.
Okay.
And I had been
where a lot of people start as well. So you've worked your way.
I worked, So I was clinical trials assistant for about 2 years. And then I was promoted to project manager. And I was in that position for about 5 years. And then about 4 years ago, I moved into the operations role.
Wow. Okay.
So that's how I've got here today.
And do you see a massive difference in, I guess, clinical trials from when you were working in Peru to what you're doing now?
Yes, I suppose in Peru, it was very much kind of, we were kind of going out to their homes and things like that. Okay. So the participants didn't kind of come to see us. So we would actually go out to the kind of villages and things like that. And we would kind of just knock on people's doors and see if they would want to be interested in partaking in a study. We would collect all the data on just paper source documents, and then we would enter it into Excel.
Very old school.
Very old school.
Amazing. That's a brilliant story. Okay, so then maybe that leads us nicely into the next one. Can you explain your role then as the Senior Operations Manager and outline some of your key responsibilities here?
Yeah, so I suppose my role as Operations Manager is to oversee the studies, right through from kind of the startup through to the conduct and then the closeout, from kind of, I suppose, a timeline and budget perspective mainly, and to ensure that the studies are being run as per ICH GCP.
Okay.
So I suppose what that looks like would be I would work a lot with kind of the resource planning at the very start of a study to ensure that each of our studies, we have the right clinical trials assistants for each kind of week of the study. So it can vary quite a lot. When we're doing recruitment, we might need more resources on a study, and then it might kind of peter out as we're kind of finished that recruitment stage.
Okay.
So it's looking to ensure that we have those resources to be able to achieve the study as per the timelines. So that's kind of one aspect with regards to kind of timelines. At the startup, I'm very involved in kind of, setting up like third parties and things like that.
Okay.
So I work with our senior lab tech to get kind of third party labs, kind of contracts, SLAs and things like that in place.
Okay.
A lot
bit of the legal business side as well. Yeah.
And I suppose to ensure that they have all the information that they need to be able to kind of produce the data at the end of the day.
Okay.
So those kind of things at the startup through conduct and things like that, I would be kind of very much involved in kind of, any problem solving that kind of comes up to make sure that we're kind of running things as for ICHECP. There's inevitably we're working with kind of human participants. There's always going to be something that comes up. And then I suppose from a budget perspective, it's kind of analysing the hours that we're putting in. So we kind of look from an operations perspective, hours as per kind of the budget. So on a weekly basis, I would kind of check in to see, how many visits were completed and the hours that were kind of clocked and if they're kind of matching up with, what we were expecting. We would look at that kind of on a monthly basis as well. And then if there's kind of any discrepancies or maybe fluctuations, we would kind of look and see the reasons why that's happening. So they're kind of the key aspects.
Quite broad, I suppose, and you work with a lot of different team members, I suppose, as well. So your day it's varied, and you're talking to a lot of different, I guess, responsibilities or duties across Atlantia as well.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite part of your job?
I do love the problem solving. At the time, when a problem comes up,
it's never nice,
but it's a great achievement when you kind of work with the team and figure out kind of a way around, solving that problem. So I think that would probably be one of the main aspects.
And do you have much interaction with sponsors?
I would kind of at the start of a study, setting up kind of third parties and things like that. And I suppose kind of the general setup, I would be involved in kind of the initial calls with the sponsors. And then very much kind of during the conduct phase, it would be kind of handed over to the project manager. So I would only be involved, if there's something specific that the sponsor wants to chat about. And then kind of in the closeout as well, I would be kind of more involved. I'd kind of jump on calls and things like that to ensure that kind of the timelines are being met and things like that. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, interesting. So do you think there are any barriers when setting up a trial that sponsors might not be aware of?
I think that a lot of times kind of a protocol can look a certain way on paper, and then the actual kind of logistics and practicality of, implementing a certain assessment can be a very different story.
Yes, and often overlooked as well from the beginning.
Yeah. And I think there are things that, play into those assessments that maybe aren't kind of seen straight away. So for example, it could be that we're dealing with a third party that we need to kind of look at their schedule and things like that. It could be kind of, that we have to complete a certain number of visits every week, and the assessment is, however many hours, and therefore we need to slot that in to be able to do those kind of assessments.
It comes up with like bioavailability studies, maybe where we have to cannulate and you don't take in that, say, 5 to 8 hour time, and you're just booking visits and visits. Well, in my brain, it would be a visit back to back to back, but in real life, that's not
exactly
going to happen, because the visit could be taken 5 hours or 8 hours. So that's, one CTA nearly for that day.
Exactly.
Trial, so.
And then even just things like, the participants themselves, they might need to do it before work, or, there might be samples that they need to collect prior to the visit. And that kind of all plays into kind of the timing of those assessments. So I think it's all those kind of like nitty gritty details that on paper it looks okay, and then when you dig into it, delve into it, it's a little bit more complex.
More like a jigsaw putting it together.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. And then can you explain how you might maintain clear and transparent communication with sponsors, especially maybe during critical phases of the clinical trial?
Yeah, so we have kind of, I suppose, a lot of different methods to communicate with our sponsors. So it's so important that they know exactly where their study is at. So I suppose at the start of a study, when the science team hand over, I suppose, the study to the operations team, we would have kind of an introductory call with the sponsor. And at that point, the project manager would kind of go through the project plan with the sponsor. And that kind of involves going through kind of the documentation or different plans that are needed to be, I suppose, developed before first visit. So it's to give them kind of an outline of, these are all the steps that need to be done. They might be involved as well in kind of reviewing different plans and things like that. So it's being transparent with them with regards to kind of maybe their involvement and when they need to kind of step in and review those documents. And then throughout, I suppose, the conduct phase, our project managers would have kind of regular calls with our sponsors, and they would always send kind of a weekly update to our sponsors. So that would update them on kind of the recruitment status, the visits that are, being completed on a weekly basis, any kind of adverse events or protocol deviations that might need to be noted to the sponsor. So it's just, I suppose, having that kind of clear communication at every point, so that at the end of the day, the sponsor has all the information.
And I know it's probably a little bit sponsor driven as well. If they want to call weekly, that's absolutely fine. But if they want it bi-weekly, monthly, it's completely dependent on their timeline as well.
And like sometimes sponsors just, they just have the kind of weekly update, and maybe a monthly call or something like that.
So happy enough to leave it in our hands. Yeah. They trust us.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay, so moving into our quick fire round, we're going to do this or that. As I think it worked well last week, so we'll keep it going. Okay, so adventure in a new country or a cozy staycation?
Adventure in a new country. Yeah.
Shopping in store or online shopping?
In store, yeah.
Okay, classic novels or modern bestsellers?
Classic novels.
Roller coaster thrill or a peaceful nature walk?
A nature walk. I'm so scared of roller coasters.
I don't blame you, because you get older as well. You're just
definitely.
like, no. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Reading a book or listening to an audiobook?
Probably reading a book, but I just don't have time. So audiobooks, yeah.
I'm the same. I much prefer reading, but then it's hard to find.
Yeah, definitely.
Cooking a homemade meal or dining out?
If the homemade meal is made by someone else, that would be.
You're not much of a chef, no?
I prefer people cooking for me.
Okay. Painting or playing a musical instrument?
Probably painting. Yeah.
And last one, visiting a historical site or exploring a new city?
Exploring a new city.
Yeah, very good. You can relax now, that's done. Next question then. So what do you think sets a high-performing clinical operations team apart from an average one?
I think there's a few aspects. So I think one of them, which we mentioned a little while ago, is clear communication. I think not only with the sponsor, but with, into departments and things like that, we need to all be aware of kind of what stage a study is at. If there's kind of any issues or maybe a timeline is delayed or maybe it's sped up. So that kind of, I suppose, constant communication with the teams is so important. And then I suppose forward planning as well is one thing that, sets kind of a high performing CRO apart. I think you need to kind of look into the future always and kind of assess, what's coming up and ensure that, if things do slightly move, what's the impact not only on that study, but other studies as well.
Right.
It may be that, a study recruits faster than we had anticipated, and therefore the closeout will be sooner than anticipated. And therefore we need to ensure that we have the resources because we may not have planned to have, X number of studies finished and then we have an extra one.
And the opposite way then, if something gets delayed, to have another study maybe to replace that instead of a team waiting.
Exactly, So it's always kind of, I suppose, about looking at the plan, at our timelines, and reviewing that on kind of a consistent basis.
Okay.
And then I suppose flexibility as well. So I think it's really important for a CRO to have that flexibility. And I think we do that really well here at Atlantia. I think obviously we want to, provide our sponsors with what they want. And even if we maybe haven't completed an assessment or a procedure before, I think, we've always kind of strived to be able to do that and do that very well. So I think they would be kind of the three things.
Three very good points. And I actually agree with you on all of them. I really think flexibility is massive because, there's a protocol and we follow that, but everything kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. And having a team here on site that's flexible and, communication as well, where they might be outside your door, but it's nice to just, say, hey, XYZ went wrong or XYZ went right. And it doesn't have to be like a long conversation, but just keeping everybody up to date is just so important.
Definitely. No.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, Emily, next question. So outside of working with Atlantia, what do you enjoy doing? Do you have any hobbies or activities that can help you recharge?
Yeah, so I do a lot of running. So I run a few times a week. So I find that really kind of, helps with kind of stress levels and things like that. If I'm ever, anxious or stressed about something and I go out for a run, everything kind of seems a little bit clearer in my head. So I would do that.
That's good because I just recently started running and I cannot understand how people enjoy it yet. I'm at the stage where every step is painful, but you're like, you'll get there. But I don't know. Have you done any kind of long distance races or anything?
I've done a half marathon actually at the summer, which I've always wanted to do. But I've always kind of put it off. And then someone in work actually convinced me to do one. And I was very glad that I did it.
So marathon next?
I don't know. I'll see.
It's a big
I might do another half marathon and see how I get on.
Did you do one here in Cork?
It was just in Youghal, so over the summer.
Did you enjoy it?
I did actually, it was very good. And I felt, afterwards I felt, I'd accomplished everything. Yeah.
And do you just run on the roads, or do you have a path?
Yeah, I run mainly on the roads, and then I do, because I used to do quite a lot of hill running when I was younger. So I live actually on a big hill, so I do some hill running as well. Which I think if it's short distance, it's okay, but I do my long distance running on flat roads. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And then last question: if you weren't working where you are now and you had to choose a different career path, what would that be?
I actually, after my undergraduate, I applied for my master's, and I also applied to do nursing.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of a toss-up between the two. So probably I may have gone down the nursing route. Yeah.
I could see you being a nurse, actually. You're very gentle and caring. So, and I guess it's still in the health sector. So
yeah, exactly.
Not too far off, but do you regret your decision?
No, I don't. I really like where I am now.
Okay.
I think it's very varied, as you said earlier. Kind of no 2 days are the same.
Yeah.
And the studies that we work on are so interesting as well. The sponsors have such great ideas and great products. So it's a very interesting area to be in.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Well, it was lovely to talk to you, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you in the next one.
Okay, so we've come to the end. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe below, because we have plenty more content coming soon.